So, welcome to the Treasury Elite Entrepreneur Series. Time and again, we bring in world class speakers and business leaders across the world in the field of entrepreneurship, treasury, VC, private equity, hedge funds, and conduct various programs, webinars, and conferences in different formats. Treasury Elite Entrepreneur Series is one such format where we learn from industry thought leaders about their experiences of running their businesses, opportunities and challenges they encounter, and broad global trends they see for the future. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abhishek Goenka, founder and CEO of IFA Global and Treasury Elite. We bring in one-stop treasury and foreign exchange solutions for companies across India over the last 17 years. And today we have Mr. Abhishek Somany, Managing Director and CEO, Somany Ceramics Ltd. Well, Somany Ceramics is among the 15 global giants of the ceramic industry, established 50 years ago. It has grown multifold under Abhishek's guidance and has made its presence all over India by opening over 350 exclusive stores, experience centers, and others. Welcome, Abhishek. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Glad to have you today at the part of the
Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely. So, Abhishek, I'm sure in this entrepreneur journey, we all have ups and downs. I'm sure you would have also had your ups and downs. Would love to know some of the very important milestones in your career and your learnings in the entrepreneurial journey, and also your interesting stints at Hindalco, Canoria. How did you get started and your milestones?
Yeah, so those were formative days. I think I was training there at that time in Renukoot. So that was one part of my training. The other part of my training was in Pilkingtons. We used to be collaborated with Pilkingtons at that time. Pilkington Tiles, UK. There was a joint venture in India. Subsequently, we bought them out. So it was the other way around during those times. Pilkington, really nothing much in India. Other than that, yes, every business cycle has ups and downs. I mean, we've had our own share of ups and downs. Biggest down was in 2000 to 2004, where our biggest raw material, which is natural gas, was unarbitrarily taken away from us and given to Pragati Power and the Indraprastha gas here. So it was part of the Bhurelal committee to make Delhi cleaner. Of course, he's been at it for 22 years. Delhi only keeps getting dirtier. So they really hurt industry at that time for no rhyme or reason. It was an unthought decision on their part. And whatever, the government really put the industry on a back foot in those days. So those were the 4 really tough years, which that was a bolt from the sky, which nobody had predicted. It was almost as if it was a natural disaster. But anyway, the company's balance sheet was strong. So we went through with that, with some hardships, but that did put us back a good 6 to 8 years in terms of cash flow.
Right. I think the COVID was also pretty challenging in the current times.
Look, COVID, I think it was challenging for everybody. So I don't think COVID was an outlier, but yes, that particular moment in that time, we were the only people in the NCR. So we were like the outlier at that time. So I don't think I can complain about COVID. It's actually benefited the larger players. We're one of them. So from that point of view, yes, there were hardships, but nothing more than what anybody else would have faced.
So, Abhishek, your product could be a leading indicator about the real estate trend in the country. As we all know, in the last couple of years, I think the real estate has just picked up, and I get a feeling that it's going to stay for another 5-6 years. And a lot of these developers who we talk, they're saying that things are looking very, very good despite hike in interest rates. So what's your feeling about the market and the trend? And do you get any indicators like that?
Yeah, I think there are 2-3 things which have happened. The cycle has turned finally after 10 years of real estate, but I think it's there to stay for a longer time, because this time around RERA and many other policy changes have made the real estate developer a little more cautious. I don't think they're doing exactly what they were doing the last time around, which was being extremely careless and taking the customer for granted. So I think the ones which have survived this 10-year period are truly good names across India. So uh, if you look at the Indian population, we're about 33% urbanized. So any other nation which is at our size, which is 3.5 trillion and growing, we should be at least 45 to 50% urbanized. So if I look at that figure on a 1.2 billion population, that's a shitload of homes which are to be made. So I don't think this is stopping. This cycle is going to continue. Homes are going to keep getting made. On the other hand, COVID has also given a rude shock to people that, and also in one way, rude shock to people that the homes have to get better and renovated, etc. And on the other hand, taught people that travel less, spend more time at home, productivity only gets better. Work from home is something which we've learned today. Any small little, you know, COVID restriction which comes, which we've seen even as recent as January, it didn't really stop anything. I mean, business as usual. So those are things which have only aided the industry where replacement market has gone up. That's number two. And number three, I think the interest rates and all that is really not too much of a deterrent. Earnings have also gone up. So from that point of view, what is really a deterrent currently is on the global backdrop, which is steel, cement, and other input costs, which have gone up at record highs. So this is unsustainable. So this once this starts coming down, I think there'll be a huge intake of building materials, and there'll be a huge. You will see the property times only getting larger very soon. So we're very bullish of the industry. The other thing for specifically for our industry is that India has become extremely competitive as a tile producing nation. So exports going to also play a key role for the industry. It may not be as much for Somany because we're a branded player. We get a lot of market in India, but for the industry, it will grow to become a global hub of tile sourcing from India.
Right, right, right. In fact, I was about to ask you that the China Plus model, how is it, impact the tile sector, and does the overall export as a percentage goes up? So I think
See,
it's
China dumps across the world, and that's exactly what they're facing now. They were dumping in India. So, from a cost perspective, they clearly are not as competitive as the prices they were selling at. So, we've got an anti dumping in place in India to restrict that, and it just got renewed for the next 5 years. So, 5 years, there's another anti dumping duty. And across the world, they're facing the same dumping issues, where pretty much all the tile importing nations have put some kind of a duty restriction on China, which gives India that much more of an advantage.
right, 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 right. So, Abhishek, one of the biggest risks that you have taken in your entrepreneurial journey, I mean, look at in hindsight, what is the kind of feeling you get right now about that?
Sorry, I missed that question.
What is the biggest risk that you have taken in life in your entrepreneurial journey? And how do you feel about it right now in hindsight?
I mean, the biggest risk for that matter is we were a joint family when I took over. So coming into a joint family has its own plus and minuses. So other than that, business risks are always taken. So that's something which cannot be highlighted because that's business as usual. Sometimes those business calls go right, sometimes they don't, but then you have time to rectify it. A very recent example is that in 2016-17 we opened our taps for receivables, which was a business risk which we took, which went wrong. And then we had a down cycle, then we had COVID, but then we've corrected it. We're today the best in the industry. So those are risks which, you take and you regret and then you learn from that. But I think the biggest risk personally was joining the family business at that time, where there were so many uncles and so many grandparents to report into. So that's always a risk.
Right, right, right. So, Abhishek, what's the kind of innovation culture that you have built at Somany, and how do you ensure that the innovation keeps happening? So, it's a 5-decade business now, and I'm sure you must be in a process of making it from good to great. So, what's the kind of innovation culture you have, and how do you build it?
So number one, innovation only driven if you're customer centric. If you're listening to what the consumer is saying, only then you can go back to the drawing board and create what they need. Um, so that's we've always been customer centric. In the early ages, it was more of a hygiene product, so there was not much which the customer was really saying other than hygiene. So at that time, we had invested a lot into machinery, and therefore we had collaborated with Pilkingtons, who was the best in class at that time. And then we moved to Italian manufacturers and got in technology from Italy because the seat of quality tiles had moved from England to Italy. So we then started collaborating with them from machinery, technology, design, etc. But the lately, I think we've become even more consumer centric, more distribution centric, and from machinery we've become more people centric. So from a machine point of view, today we are a 50-year-old brand, but our average age of machinery in our own plants is under 6-7 years. So you can pretty much say that the plants are all modernized. They're all brand new, up-to-date plants. Whatever the market needs can be made in our plants, uh, in terms of formats, in terms of quality, etc. Now it comes to design, which is what the consumer sees. There, I think we have a whole host of people who are in the market. I myself am fairly active in the market, um, minus the COVID times, of course, but otherwise fairly active in the market, where we are hearing continuously what the dealers have to say, what the consumers have to say. We interact with consumers in terms of specifiers, which are architects, interiors, uh, builders, masons, etc. The mysteries really. So we are continuously dialoguing with them. Other than that, the market teaches you what the market teaches you. Nobody else can teach you. So we're always in the market to see what competition is doing, see what the world is doing, how can we indigenize it, put everything in the market from a uh, consumer centric point of view. The other thing is consumer may want a lot. I mean, at any given time, you show him 100 tiles and his first answer would be or kuch dikhaiye. So it's there is no satisfaction at any given time. But the question on the other hand is also, while we are trying to satisfy 90% of the consumer, I don't think there's anything called 100%. We also have to keep in mind consistency. So you're generally putting tiles twice, thrice in your life. What happens if you don't have consistency? You will have a duress issue, either of a leakage or you have something broken and you want to change the tile 5, 7, 8 years later. If you don't find it, then you have to go and select and change the entire tile, so entire bathroom. So from that point of view, um, consistency is also very key. So one is driving innovation, one is uh, keeping alive what you've innovated and not keep changing too frequently.
Right, right. So Abhishek, you have been part of YPO, if I'm not wrong, and
Yeah, yeah.
YPO discusses one of the most common, I mean, the latest trends in business. I think every week with a set of people. What are the common issues that you are discussing right now among your peer group?
So yeah, I've been part of EO and YPO, and there it's more peer-to-peer learning. So for example, in COVID times, we had set up groups of 10 people each, which were uh, discussing how they're managing multi. No group had one single industry. They had multiple industries representing. So we were discussing how they're doing salary cuts, how they're doing, if at all, how they're doing rationalization, how they're cutting costs in terms of fixed expenses to tide through those trouble times, how they're restructuring with the banks, what are they doing with rentals, etc. So that was a huge learning, and you saw somebody who was very large in retail, how they were renegotiating their rents with the landlord. Somebody was very large in with the banks, so how they were renegotiating that, how they were renegotiating insurances, etc. So time to time we keep leveraging that network. So we have a WhatsApp chat, and if I had to put something on the chat as a need and a lead, virtually within literally 3 to 4 minutes, there'll be 20 replies to connect you. So from a person you want to meet to a problem you have or a situation you're in, everything gets answered in 5 minutes. So that's not a weekly, it's on a daily basis. You can keep tapping that resource if you really wish to. So extremely fruitful. And if I'm not mistaken, YPO globally, I think would contribute to 20 something percent of the global wealth
Mm-hmm.
in terms of market
Right.
cap.
Of course, in Bombay also, I think it's pretty active. I've been a speaker in 3 or 4 groups over here.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty close-knitted community over here also.
Yeah, it's very close knit, about 40,000-50,000 members across the globe.
Yeah, yeah.
India has about, if I'm not mistaken, now close to 2,000.
Yeah. So, Abhishek, I know that you are very, very adventurous with sports. That's been some of, you keep changing sports as per the season. It has been cricket, squash, golf in COVID, and I think you have an avid collector of miniature cars. What's new? And also add one fun fact about you, what people don't know.
So yeah, I think sports has always excited me. So I've always been not a gym person, but a sports person. So played a lot of cricket, played a lot of squash, badminton. Those two things I continue to do. Cricket doesn't, the calendar doesn't find time for cricket. So move to golf, which you can finish sometime in the morning and still be in time for work. So that's something I've taken up now at this age. So squash and tennis, squash and baddy still continue. Otherwise, love any form of adventure sport from, I used to race and rally at one time. Again, that rallying, of course, is no longer on the menu, but on racing any track across the world, you take a Sunday off and in between travels, do that. So that I still continue to do. I do dive also. So diving is another passion. So that is something. So I've certified myself on diving. So every now and then, whenever you get a chance, I dive. So some kind of adrenal sports is something which keeps me going at any given time. So I'm always looking for something new to do in terms of an adrenal sport.
Yeah. So what are you targeting next? Anything that you have not done?
With Russia shutting off, they had a flight which was called the Edge of Space flight. They took you in a MiG-25 or a MiG-29 up to 90,000 feet. So that's stopped due to Russia. But yeah, when it comes up, we'll probably do that.
Interesting. Very much interesting. Great, Abhishek. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing the insights about your journey.